Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Too Many Games. And today we've got a bit of a different one. Since the start of the channel, I've covered Epic Armageddon for the most part, looking at how to play the game and a few other bits and pieces, few reviews, and that's primarily because I love Epic Armageddon and I don't think it gets enough love out there. But that said, it was never intended that the channel would only ever cover that and nothing else. This is in no way an announcement of covering another game, but I thought today, why not have a look at Legions Imperialis, the game that's been announced by GW, because obviously it's a bit of a competitor or similar game to Epic Armageddon, and I thought let's get some understanding of what it is and some opinions out there and start that conversation of what people are considering around this game. So today, Legions Imperialis versus Epic Armageddon, out with the old or not. So let's have a look at it. So what is Legions Imperialis, in case you're not familiar with it? Just said, I've followed along with it to a certain point. I don't know everything. I'm just covering some basics here today and hopefully sharing some of that with you. It's a new epic scale game from Games Workshop that's been announced for release at some point, probably this year, but I don't think we have a firm date on that yet. And by epic scale, I mean similar to the old epic games, Epic Armageddon, Epic 40k, Titan Legions, all that type stuff. It is set in the Horus Heresy period, so the 30k period essentially. So that is different to a lot of the stuff. Epic Armageddon being set in 40k, but the Horus Heresy seems to have quite a large following, so they're releasing it into that space only at this time, and have not said that it's going to expand out to 40k. It's 8mm miniatures in scale, so a little bit bigger than the 6mm. But that said, scale in the old 6mm miniatures was a bit of a sliding scale in a lot of ways. It's a game in inches, not centimeters, which again is, I suppose, just preference. And it's similar to Adeptus Titanicus or Aeronautica Imperialis, which have been games that they've released in the last few years with varying levels of support. Supposedly released this year, but again, I don't think we have an exact date on that, so we'll see what happens. How does it play? 3,000 point army generally seems to be what they're saying. It's going to be played on a slightly smaller table than Epic Armageddon, on a 5x4 table. You have a whole lot of restrictions to build your army to, a bit of a force organization kind of chart it looks like. So you will generally put together formations that contain detachments. So every 1,500 points in your force, you'll get one formation. There's different flavors of detachments and formations that go. So a formation is kind of the bigger kind of grouping, and there'll be smaller detachments or squads, units, that type of thing that go in that formation. So you'll have different flavors that you can kind of craft in that. 30% of your total force can be spent on allies and titans, they're telling us. So you'll be able to bring in the big guns and also kind of get a bit of flavor to your force. What does it look like on the turn? And again, this is all kind of just a bit of an overview. You start off with an orders phase in your turn. You assign one of four, so there's four options, secret orders to each detachment or squad. Then you go into initiative, where you reveal all those orders that you assign secretly, and you determine who goes first by a roll-off. Movement then occurs, so you move all your detachments, you advance, march, charge. You then have a combat phase where you're shooting, you're fighting, all that type of stuff. And then you go into an end phase in the turn, as you might expect, and resolve different effects. There might be some morale that looks like it'll take place, rallying and calculating your victory points. So the orders obviously seems like a big part of the game. Going to be a lot of tokens on the board, placing them down next to the detachments. You do that all at the same time and do it secretly. There's four types of orders that we've been told about. You've got first fire, advance, march, and charge. So movement, how does that work? Players take turns activating their detachments one by one. So it's an alternating activation style game. It's not move your entire army and then the other person. So you take turns activating and moving your units. If you advance, then you can do a regular move with that detachment and then shoot. If you do a march, you can do a double move, so double your movement, but you cannot shoot at all. If you just have infantry in that detachment, it seems like you can do a treble move or 3 times the move. But if you've got a mixed format or mixed detachment, you can't actually do the 3 moves. I'm going to get the all the terminology a bit mixed up with Epic Armageddon, so forgive me for that. You've also got the charge move, which is a single or double movement to get into base contact. So again, I don't know everything about these yet. I'm just going off what's been revealed. And you've also got first fire. So that order seems like it stops you from moving, but you have the option to shoot before other things happen in the shooting phase or the combat phase. Speaking of the combat phase, it looks like it's divided into 3 phases. So that first fire that I just mentioned, people that did that, so they couldn't move, but they get to actually shoot before anything else happens. So that could be a handy way, kind of like an Overwatch, but different. You then do engagement, so you resolve combats that happen, and then everything else will shoot. I assume when they say is resolve combats, that's hand-to-hand, that kind of stuff. Shooting seems very similar to the 40k or perhaps the GW current style, so it seems like they've brought it in line. If you have a look at the example here, you see the Legion bolters, presumably on your standard troops. It's got a range of 8 inches, 1 dice, 5+ to hit with an AP of 0, with a couple of special rules there. Similar, the Predator Cannon looks like it's a longer range, and the Volcano Cannon even longer, but the Predator Cannon's got 2 dice when you roll, so you're rolling 2 dice to attack with it, 5+ to hit, -1 on the AP, which would be affecting their armor save. So pretty simple, fairly similar to how other games that they have been set up. So nothing too groundbreaking there. Close combat. So it mentions that the close combat is going to be a bit like the old Epic system. So it's interesting that they mention that, and I'll be curious as that kind of as we kind of learn all the rules about that, how similar that actually is, and which Epic systems are they thinking of when they think of all that. Individual models pair off, it seems, in close combat. You roll 2d6 and you add the close assault factor, the CAF. So every unit seems to have a CAF. So roll 2d6 and add your CAF to it, and you get a bonus if you charge. And if you lose, you take a wound with no saves. So that's pretty full on. So they're trying to make it fairly quick by the sounds of it. And if you're outnumbered, you'll let your opponent roll an extra d6. So it seems like your opponent's going to get that benefit if they can kind of mob up on you. But I'm assuming if you're outnumbered, you might be elite. Maybe you have a better close assault factor. Other rules that have kind of been mentioned or revealed is kind of coherency in your detachments, how you keep them together. There's going to be things about moving through terrain. There will be some type of Overwatch. Don't know the details yet. And there will be a morale system in the game. So it'll be interesting to see what they do with that. So that's a real quick kind of brief thing. I mainly wanted just to kind of get it out there that, obviously you're aware that this is all coming out, and, for a lot of people it'll be exciting. So what do I like about all this in the release? I like that there's a renewed interest in kind of these smaller scale miniatures, larger battles in the Games Workshop setting. I think that's really cool, and that's obviously what I really enjoy about all this. The models that they've shown do look good. I won't lie, like they're really cool looking models. Particularly if you're into that aesthetic as well of the miniatures of that period in the 40k universe, then I think they look great. Some of the tanks I think look really cool. All the stuff from Adeptus Titanicus and Aeronautica Imperialis for the most part looks great. So it's all in line with that. So that's pretty good that we can get some new models. There's potential there for simpler rules. Again, we don't know. We'll wait and see when they're all released. That's one of the whole reasons that the channel exists in the first place, was to kind of explain the Epic Armageddon rules when looking at that, and it can be a real barrier to entry for people going, well, that's too much to read through, too much to understand in order to play. So there's that option that maybe this will have simpler rules for people. They'll be able to get into it, and explore this scale of gaming. Already we've kind of seen some of the charts they've released for units seem a little bit easier to digest than the old Epic Armageddon charts. And if you play Epic Armageddon, you're used to those big, long tables, essentially, of here's your units, this is what they do. And they're easy once you learn it, but hard to get into. Things that may benefit Epic Armageddon, like, new terrain coming out. That'd be cool. If you're playing Epic Armageddon, you might be able to use some of that terrain. Other companies will start releasing things that are suitable for Legions Imperialis, and that will potentially be suitable for Epic Armageddon too. So there's some really cool things like that. It's great for the Horus Heresy community. There's a real dedicated fan base to Horus Heresy and Horus Heresy gaming, and I know there's Epic 30K that has existed, though not sure how well supported that is. So if you're in that Horus Heresy community, like, that's got to be great. So that's really cool that they get that kind of focus on it. What am I unsure of about it? Well, the time setting. I personally prefer the 40k time setting as opposed to the 30k setting. I like the variety that comes with it, the Xenos, all that type stuff that goes with it. So I'm not a huge, I enjoyed the Horus Heresy, but I'm not one to sit there and just go through, marine on marine battles and pretend that's the ultimate. I prefer the variety that comes in the 40k setting, having your orcs, having your Tyranids, all that type of stuff alongside your marines is what I really like. Will the rules be too simplistic? I don't think they will. They might be too 40k-ish, which is not a go. It's not a slight on 40k. I do play 40k. I like Epic Armageddon better, but 40k is fine, and there's a particular style to those rules, but I don't really want to necessarily play the same rules just in the Epic scale. Not that this will be, but it'll be very similar, I think, in some ways. What's the price of the new models going to be? Let's be honest, they'll be expensive. They won't be cheap, and that's just expected. But we will see when all is revealed what they go for. Here in Australia, it will be horrendous, I dare say, for the price of them, particularly given 3D printing, quality of the prints that are out there now, what people are doing at home. It's a tough ask to ask people to invest hundreds upon hundreds and hundreds for one army when you could get into 3D printing for a similar price or cheaper potentially. What's the release schedule going to be? This is one of the I suppose sore points of some of the games that aren't 40k or Age of Sigmar is the release schedule can be quite sporadic or slow or just disjointed, not clear. Even with the Horus Heresy game that's come out in the last couple of years, it seems like the release schedule for that, even though that's a big model game in a sense, hasn't been great. So if 30k in the larger scale is not necessarily got a great release schedule, then I can't imagine this will have a great release schedule. So a bit unsure of that. What am I a bit cynical of when it comes to this? The 8mm scale that they're releasing it in, I know they're doing that because it matches Adeptus Titanicus and Aeronautica, but is it a way to kind of void the old 6mm scale? As far as I'm aware, I think they have said that, you can still use your old stuff in it, but, just changing the scale a little bit so it doesn't quite fit. There's that cynical party that goes, have you done that on purpose in the hope that people can't use their old stuff? Now, again, the old stuff's 40k. Not 30k, so perhaps that cynicism's not warranted there, but it is strange that they just kind of change that scale just enough to be noticeable. And if you put the old stuff against the new stuff, you will notice a difference, even though it's only 2mm. Long-term support for the game. I think there's a pretty shoddy history when it comes to some of the big box games that go alongside with GW. I would be very surprised if they supported this for a long term. I think it'll be a short term kind of release on it, and then it will probably disappear like a lot of games have for GW. That's just how they go. So I can't see it having the staying power that in 10 years Legions Imperialis is still going with a consistent release and support from the company. I just don't think the history supports that. The nickel and dime model of books and of all the other stuff that seems to happen with GW can get a bit old. Having to update books, having to update a whole lot of things, and just, now the subscription kind of stuff that's coming out with it. What's the cost? What's the real cost going to be? A little bit here, a little bit there. How much is it really going to cost? And what's the treatment of the EA community long term going to be? If this kind of takes off a bit, are they going to try and, I suppose clamp down on some of the Epic Armageddon stuff, or Epic 40k stuff out there? Again, I don't know that that's going to happen, but there's that cynical part of you that thinks, oh, maybe it will. So Epic Armageddon versus Legions Imperialis, and both of them aren't easy names to say, I won't lie. What should you go for? What's good? What's bad? What would make you choose one over the other? Well, I think it depends on a few things, what you're looking for, really. Is there a preferred setting? Do you like that 30k better? Then maybe Legions Imperialis is for you. If that's the setting that you just love, Horus Heresy, then go for it, jump in, get that going. If you prefer the 40k setting, I don't think Legions Imperialis is a sell for you, because I think you'll find it a bit lacking. And that's what I found at the larger scale game, going, Marines versus Marines every game. It gets a bit old. Even though you can have Titans and have some of the auxiliary there too, but preferred setting. Support from GW versus 3D prints, other manufacturers. Have a think. There's a lot of 3D prints out there for Epic Armageddon now, for 30k stuff as well, even. Something to consider. Do you want to be supporting GW? Some people consider that. I'm not big on that bandwagon of saying no, don't, but I know for some people they may not jump into it because they don't want to support them, because they haven't supported things like Epic in years. So that's fair enough. And I think there's potentially a larger rules barrier, as I've kind of mentioned with Epic Armageddon. But there's a greater depth potentially that comes with Epic Armageddon with that combined arms side of it. Now, don't get me wrong, there might actually be a large rules barrier for Legions Imperialis. We don't know. I kind of just highlighted there that, things like firing arcs still exist. So it seems like there might be more complexity in Legions Imperialis than perhaps what I thought initially. I thought they would have just streamlined a whole lot of that stuff out and gone, no, we're not going to worry about firing arcs. But it seems like they will exist. So, that just demonstrates perhaps there is, a greater depth to the rules in Legions than I think. But at this point, I would guess Epic Armageddon has a greater depth to it, which is a barrier, but perhaps a good thing too if you really want to sink your teeth in it. I've just done a 18 video series on the rules for Epic Armageddon, so it's in depth, the rules there, but it is pretty hard for a new person to kind of digest. So, in conclusion, listen, this won't affect me playing Epic Armageddon. I love Epic Armageddon, so I don't feel concerned by it, and actually, a little bit excited by some of the things that might come out from it. Might actually purchase a few things. Obviously there's some scale issues around that, but I've got one of the Warlord Titans from Adeptus Titanicus, and it's massive compared to my Epic Armageddon stuff, but it still looks cool. It's a great model. It's awesome. I picked that up rather cheap. I've got some of the Aeronautica stuff too, which they are just beautiful models to have, as your Air Force in Epic, and I think it's a bit easy to sell the scale difference in that sense because, they're aircraft. They're up in the sky for the most part. I might purchase some things. I'm kind of interested as to what comes out and what might actually be a good fit in my Epic Armageddon collection. I'll give the game a go for sure. I know a few people who are interested in getting into it. Don't know if I'll invest or not, but definitely will try the game and give it a run, and I might enjoy it, might like it. I'm just not a Heresy man for the most part. I don't mean I'm a loyalist. I mean Horus Heresy is good, and I think it has its place in the history, and I think it's really cool in the setting. But I don't really find a huge attraction to just gaming in that setting. I think it might be good for a once off or here or there, but I'm just not one of the guys that's really invested in it. But I know there are some diehards for it that love it beyond anything else. So it'll be really cool for those guys. But yeah, for me, I'm a 40k guy, not so much a Heresy guy. So what do you like about the releases? What do you think looks cool? What are you planning to do when it comes out? I want to hear your comments and your feedback around that. Are you excited for Legions Imperialis? Are you a bit skeptical over the same stuff I am? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. It'd be great to get some feedback on it and see where other people are thinking around it. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video. Just a quick one, just to kind of touch on it. I know it's getting a bit of news getting released. I thought it'd be good just to kind of share my thoughts on that so far. Anyway, thanks for watching. Look out for more videos, like, subscribe, all that stuff, and I'll see you next time on Too Many Games.